government. We had an example, a beautiful example of minimal power in our government, and then we had maximum productivity and maximum wealth. But today we think too much of the wealth and believe that government provides this, rather than understanding that wealth and prosperity comes from freedom and productivity and not from the government. One other thing that we have done to help contribute to the loss of our republic has been this notion that we should give up some of our liberties to be safe and secure. There is absolutely never a reason to give up 1 ounce of freedom for the sake of security. It won't work. Besides our flawed foreign policy, there were a few other problems that contributed to 9/11. One was our lack of clear understanding of how the Second Amendment is supposed to work. And once again, even before 9/11, it was assumed the government would take care of us and be safe. They were in charge of airport security, and they after some hijacking in the 70s, we were all taught one thing you never do is resist anybody that wants to take over an airplane, and certainly the airlines wouldn't be allowed to have guns on the airplane. That would be terrible. But we have companies in this country still today. These companies are armored cars, and they carry money around, and they have guns, and they do a pretty good job protecting their cargo. But we were handicapped in this country because we were dependent on the government, and our cargo, our passengers, weren't protected as they should have been. They said that, no, they're too dangerous, but can you imagine what 4 airplanes involved? Maybe 4 guns, or just the knowledge that the guns were there might have prevented the whole thing. There have been some serious consequences of our lack of respect and our loss of liberty and lack of concern and defense of our republic. And we're suffering the consequences. This is what we're talking about. How can we reverse this trend? I think we have to understand how it happened, what the problems were, and what we have to aim for. But we've had a lot of problems because of this. Number one, economic problems, because they do not understand the Constitution and economics on monetaries. I mean, it is very clear what we should be doing. The founders knew and understood something about inflation. The runaway inflation of the continental dollar was devastating to the economy. So they were explicit. They said no emitting of bills of credit, no printing money, no paper money, and that only gold and silver should be legal tender. Not yet. Didn't give you a signal yet. Now it comes. There is no authority in the Constitution authorizing a central bank, which means there should be no Federal Reserve System. Now, can you believe that 18 months ago, at the beginning of this campaign, that I didn't believe any of you existed and cared about or understood anything about the Federal Reserve? It's great. as a consequence of our lack of concern for the protection of liberties, we have suffered tremendously from this. We don't have privacy anymore. We passed bills like the Patriot Act and the FISA legislation, and the Military Commissions Act. No Military Commissions Act. We need to defend habeas corpus. And the one thing that we don't need, that they're doing in the name of catching all those potential terrorists, is we do not need and should not accept a national ID card. There's another war that's been going on for a good many years, but especially since the early 70s. We have spent hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars on this particular war, but it's been war on American citizens more than it's been a war to change these conditions. And that is the war on drugs, which has been a complete, total failure. The war on drugs has led us to a condition where the states pass laws that say that if you happen to be ill, you are sick, you're getting chemotherapy, you have AIDS, and you get benefit by smoking marijuana, and the law permits you to do it, which should be permissible in a republic. No, the federal government actually arrests sick people in the name of compassionate conservatism and putting people in prison. But some say, well, it's dangerous. You might do other things, and there's a danger to you on what you do with your own body. Yeah, I made a comment once in a speech on the House floor. I said, yes, some of the strongest drug warriors in Washington, D.C. rant and rave about the possibility of a sick person using marijuana for their illness at the same time. But guess what? They have no hesitation to imbibe in that drug called alcohol, a more dangerous drug. But the drug war has caused us to do so many foolish things. Not only it's a violation of freedom of choice and taking your own risk, it violates the concept of states' rights and state legislation, but it also has done something rather weird in many ways. This whole idea, and it's only recent, it's in the lifetime of many of us here. It was the first federal law against the use of marijuana occurred in 1937, I believe. 1937. Before that, people did use that. States had right to regulate, but it's a recent onset. But during the war, it was important that a related plant to marijuana called hemp was used. They were encouraged to grow it. It was useful in the war effort. You can make clothes and medical problems and food products out of hemp. But we are obsessed and confused. And what does the federal government do? If you go out and plant hemp plants, you're going to go to jail. What's going on? And they'll tell you, oh no, it's a drug. Somebody might smoke it. But you know what? To get high on a hemp cigarette, the cigarette has to be big as a telephone pole. This is a very, very serious issue. And the last thing I ever want to leave anybody with is that I think drugs are safe. I think drugs are very dangerous. I think illegal drugs, the ones that are currently illegal, are very, very dangerous, and we should be very cautious about it. But I also, as a physician, recognize of the great danger